Hi Tim, and to anybody else who's going to be listening to this, this is my second part coming to you live from my laundry again. I've tried a couple of times to get this done, so if I stuff up through this, I'm just going to go on with it because it's a real trouble reading out loud, but we'll see how we go. Hopefully I don't stumble it. I'm finding it at the moment I try to rewrite it as I go sometimes, which is never good, but whew, okay, here we go. Sally's plan to run screaming home to her parents and deliver the best news of her life had taken a slight detour. Her mother had called the school to say that the one and only family car had broken down and Sally would have to wait for her sister Jen to finish work before she could be picked up in her car instead. Sally's sister Jen no longer lived at home. Even though the university she went to was in the same town as they lived, she said she wanted to get her own place so she could live the full university experience, whatever that meant. Sally was pretty sure her mum and dad would have to have done some pretty big grovelling to get Jen to take the 10 minutes out of her life to come and pick her up. They would probably even have to have paid to replace her mobile phone she dropped in the public toilet last week. Waiting for Jen wouldn't usually be a problem for Sally, because it was only a 30-minute wait, and Sally was so used to being by herself all the time that 30 minutes wasn't anything. But today was different. Today it felt like her insides would burst if she didn't get home. Like wanting to go to the toilet but everybody was watching, so you have to hold it in. She kept glancing at her watch to see how much longer she had to endure, only to find that the minute hand hadn't even moved a lot of the time. Her eyes were fixed on the corner of the road, praying her sister would get a little time off work and appear earlier than expected. As annoying as it was that the car had decided to choose this day of all days to break down, at least she would be able to see her sister. It had been a month since she had, and she would be the first one to hear the great news about her lisp. That would be sure to get her excited. Sally felt twitchy and was having trouble staying seated on one of the small benches placed there for the kids waiting to catch the bus like normal people. Sally wasn't allowed on the bus, not after the peanut butter incident. She would take the peanut butter today if it meant she could get home quicker. Sally wondered how she would tell her parents the good news, exactly what it was she would say and how she was going to say it. Should she build it up? Try to make them guess? Perhaps she should mime it, because if she does say anything, it'll probably be obvious anyway. Another thing hit her though. Exactly how was she going to explain how this miracle happened in the first place, when Sally had no idea herself? It must have been something to do with that pen, but she had no earthly idea what that was. She ran a number of different scenarios through her head, but none of them sounded right. It had to be the pen and the strange glowing light, but how? Sally was so preoccupied by her thoughts that she didn't see the old man in the big blue jacket take a seat on the bench beside her, and jumped a little when he said hello and mumbled something about the weather. The man looked as old as Sally's granddad, and he was even dressed in the same type of clothes that her granddad had worn in those pictures of him when he was younger, on that big boat. What had he called it again? Oh, that's right, a navy dress. It didn't look much like a dress, though. Sally had always thought that it was kind of a silly name for a suit. This man's navy dress was a lot dirtier than her granddad's had been in the photo, though, and it was coming apart at the seams. In fact, the stitching was so frayed, Sally wasn't sure how the left arm of the man's jacket was summoning the wheel to keep holding on to the shoulder. The man didn't look deterred by this. Instead, he just sat there quietly for a minute and stared intently up at the sky. Sally looked up to see if she could see what he was looking at, but all that she could see was a blank blue canvas staring back at her. A few birds were twittering about, but the man's head wasn't moving about to keep up with them. His gaze was fixed at a certain point in the sky where nothing seemed to be. Sally didn't know what the man was doing there, but she did know she wanted to sit as far away from him as she possibly could. She itched over a few inches across the seat, in a small little shuffle so he wouldn't get upset and think she was moving away because of his horrible smell. Although, now that she thought of it, that was a pretty good reason she didn't want to be next to him as well. "Nice comet," the man said suddenly, and Sally jumped again. Sally looked up with excitement. A comet? She'd always wanted to see a real comet. Ever since she and her father sat in the backyard every Friday night when she was younger, gazing up at the stars through an old telescope he bought from a second-hand shop for what he called a really bargain price. A comet. How did she miss it before? But as she looked around, her excitement waned, for she could still not see what the man was looking at. She slumped a little, disappointed. Besides, it was daytime, she grumbled to herself bitterly. Don't you only see comets at night? She decided she would try to ignore the man. She had gotten good at looking like she hadn't gotten good at looking like she didn't care about things, and she turned her thoughts back to her good news and whether or not she should present it in a song. Her mummy always did like her singing. She would love to see a comet, but she's 9 now, and so she's too old to still believe in make-believe ones. They always do make such fine comments, don't you think? The man asked, his gaze not shifting. Who makes comets? Sally thought to herself. Is there a factory somewhere that she didn't know of that specialised in making comets or something? If there was, she really wanted to go there, like right now. She was about to ask the man how they store the comets and if she could go and see them make one, but he went on with his little ramble. Never seen a green one before, though. Always wondered what it would be like to see a green one. Seen a purple one once. Seen a yellow one too, and a blue one. Even saw a red one. Ooh, the red one. That was a nasty one. He took a deep sigh and shook his head, as if wiping some long-forgotten memory that had dared creep back into his mind. But, nope, I ain't never seen a green one before. Should be interesting to see, don't you think? Sally craned her head to the sky once more, but still couldn't see anything. She was frustrated. She would really like to see a green comet. I can't see anything, she remarked. The man smiled and his eyes finally fell from the sky, happy that she had responded. No, of course not. You wouldn't be able to with those sort of eyes now, would you? Sally wasn't sure what he meant. She couldn't see it because her eyes were blue. But it's up there, the man went on. Mark my words, it's up there right now and it's getting close. If you pointed a telescope up at the sky, you might be able to see it, but otherwise you'll just have to wait like everybody else. Wait? For what? The man gave a puzzled look, like it was a stupid question that she should already know the answer to. Sally got this look all the time, so she didn't get upset by it. For the comet's arrival, of course, the man said matter-of-factly. It's coming here? Well, of course it is. This is where comets come. Is it going to hit us? The man gave a stern look back to the sky. Only if it wants to. He looked down to see the worried look in Sally's eyes. But you don't need to worry about that. Sally wasn't sure if she believed that or not. He leant over, and Sally instinctively recoiled back until she realized he was coming forward to whisper something in her ear. What you really should be worrying about is not the comet itself, but its tail instead. The tail? Sally didn't know comets had tails, so she wasn't quite sure what the man meant again, but she didn't get the chance to ask him. Mrs. Kilt, who was supposed to be watching after Sally and to her sister's arrival, had run to her office to tidy her things. She was now making a brisk pace towards Sally and the man, and she looked very cross indeed. Excuse me? Yes, you there. You, sir, yes. What is it that you're doing there? The man stood up and turned to face the advancing Mrs. Kilt. Nothing, ma'am, just talking to the young lady about comets, that's all. Yes, well, kindly make your way off school property if you would please. This is not a street or a park, this is a place of learning. Sorry, ma'am, won't happen again. He turned back to Sally before he departed. You take care now, little lady. Comets can be beautiful, but it's what comes after them that you've got to watch out for. Yep, it's what's in the tail of the comet that will get you, not the rock. He began to slumber away. Thank you for telling me about the comet. I will look for it tonight, Sally called after him, and he turned back again. You should watch it. You won't be the only one, that's for sure. A lot of people are very interested in that there comet. Trust me, it will change your life forever if you see it. Just remember, always look for what others don't. That way you won't miss anything now, will you? And with that he was gone, leaving Sally alone with a very worried Mrs. Kilt. Sally realised she had forgotten to ask the man where the comet factory was. Oh well. Sally realised she must have forgotten. Sally realised she had forgotten to ask the man where the comet factory was. Oh well, her mum and dad should know, and even if they didn't, there was one thing for sure. They would be getting out the old telescope tonight, because tonight was comet hunting night. Sally's head was so full of comets that she barely realised her sister had arrived, and she had hopped into the car until Jen said hello. "Hey, how was your day?" Jen chirped happily. But Sally could tell from the opening that she was about to get dramatic again. "You won't believe the day that I've had," Jen continued. Yep, Sally was right. Sally didn't really listen to how Jen's day was, although what she did make out was that it involved Jen having to do work at work or something. Jen didn't notice that Sally wasn't saying anything as she rambled on. This was usual because of Sally's lisp. This was usual. Because of a lisp, Sally didn't like to talk much, which was good because Jen liked to talk a lot. The whole trip home, Sally never said a thing. She just sat and listened. She wanted to ask about the comet, but that wasn't the sort of thing that Jen would know anything about anyway. She was more interested in hair and shopping and boys for some weird reason. What was all this about boys anyway? The kiss from Bobby Gibbons wasn't that good. Well, it was quite nice. She didn't have time to worry about that though. There were comets to explore. They arrived home after a short trip, and Sally burst out of the car and through the door to her mother in the kitchen. Mum! This nice old man said there was a comet passing by, and we should be able to see it. We have to get the telescope out of the attic and look at it tonight." Sally's dad walked in through the back door of the kitchen that led into the laundry, and Sally could see his eyes were awash of excitement as she went on. So she went on. "It's supposed to be green. Can you believe that? A green comet, Dad. We've always wanted to see a green comet. Well, perhaps not a green one, but that's just an added bonus, right?" Her parents came together and stood for a second, just looking at her dumbfounded. They were obviously impressed. "Sally, your lisp," her mother finally blurted out through tears that were slowly beginning to well in her eyes. Sally suddenly remembered her other great news of the day. "Oh yeah, my lisp is gone. Isn't this just the best day ever? Hey, when's tea? I want to eat so I'm not distracted by anything when we're looking at the comet." She turned and bolted upstairs towards her room. "I'm going to change into my Dora the Explorer costume," she yelled over her shoulder. "It's going to be so cool!" She disappeared up the stairs, leaving her parents in the kitchen very perplexed. They heard a cry from upstairs and Sally ran back down. "Oh, and can we go to the comet factory? That sounds so cool. Can we go? Can we go, please?" Okay, so that isn't quite as polished as I would usually have it. There are a couple of things there that I would add just to flesh out exactly the scene properly and everything, but as I said, I'm more going for storyline now, and I hope that can give you some story ideas too. Mind-reading comet. Mind-reading comet. No, probably not a mind-reading comet, but you know. I hate finishing these things because I could just ramble on for ages here, so I better get my little camera thing here and shut myself